You studied Holy Quran very deeply.
I tried.
And what was your instance after the reading of the Holy Quran?
The parts of the Quran that always stay in my mind, they are the injunction, the imperative to compete in the good deeds. There is a very famous verse in Surah 5 in the Quran say, لو شاء الله لجعلكم أمة واحدة ولكن ليبلوكم بما أتاكم به فاستبقوا الخيرات إلى الله مرجعكم جميعا وهو ينبئكم بما كنتم فيه تختلفون. Which means, if God had willed, He would have made you one single community. But He wanted to test you with the revelation that He gave you.
Exactly.
So compete with each other in the good deeds. To God you will all return, and He will tell you about your differences.
Exactly.
This is one of those things in the Quran which are very enlightening and also very inspiring. Because it is an invitation to me as a Christian.
It's a universal message.
Yeah. To me as a Christian, to you as a Muslim, and to the Jews, and Ahl Kitab, to the people of the book. You compete with each other. And only God will know, what is the right thing. So you wait. In Islam you have the philosophies called the Murji'ah. The Murji'ah, it means you should know not to try to decide between the right and wrong here and now. You postpone it. And you hope for the best, Raja, the hope. So I think this is one thing. The other thing is, of course, a very beautiful language about Allah, about the Creator, about God, creating the world. Even if we try to make all the trees on the earth into pens and all the oceans into ink, still we could not describe the greatness of God. Because He's beyond. I think it's from Surah Al-Mulk.
And recently there are very sad incidents in Sweden. What you will comment about the burning of Holy Quran in Sweden?
Well, I think the best comment is for you and me. We sit here together. We have a dialogue.
Gustavo, yes.
And you know as well as I, Muslims in Sweden are very well integrated into our society.
Do you think so?
Oh, yes. Look at yourself. You are working here in the middle of a top-class academic institution. You are a Muslim from Pakistan. You have many colleagues around here. In Sweden, you have Sunnis praying in different mosques. You have Shias praying in different mosques. They all live in harmony together with the Swedish population. And the Swedish taxpayer, every year the government gives subsidies to all the religious communities.
To the mosques.
To the mosques, to the synagogues, to the churches.
All
the religious
and there is
communities.
No discrimination.
No discrimination, because the taxpayers' money is a non-confessional currency. Actually, it is sacred in the sense that it should be used for all the citizens.
They very sadly held several times this incident of burning the Quran, which hurted all the Muslims. And we were twicely hurted because as a citizen of Sweden and a Muslim.
Of course.
And there is an opinion nowadays. Every time there is discussion in the media, there are two opinions. Some people say the existing laws also forbid to do this. There is another opinion. There should be a new law or there should be a new ordinance. What do you think? How we can stop this?
I think if you begin to change the law, then the Muslims will be blamed, and you will be made scapegoat if there is any kind of misuse of this. Because if you look at some countries where you have blasphemy laws, there are some terrible things happening. People are being killed, actually. So we don't want the death penalty. We don't want this thing with the blasphemy. But you are right. Within the framework of the existing legislation, I think there are possibilities for the police to say, this will be a disturbance, it will be a danger to the public order, to the safety of our citizens, to the safety of our country. Sweden should be safe and secure. So I think with a better discussion and a better analysis of the legislation that we have now in place, we can move ahead. But I think the most important thing is to see, have Muslims been killed in Sweden? Have they been hurt? Have the mosques been burned down? Has there been any destruction of the Muslim institutions? And so far, I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. You are right. And I said you that article that was published in Aftonbladet by the ex-secretary of Olof Palme.
Yeah.
So he gave the reference in the Swedish criminal laws, chapter 16, subsection 8. So these type of activities can be stopped. What do you think?
Well, I'm not a legal expert. So, as you know, I like philosophy and poetry and literature. So I cannot speak on matters of jurisdiction and legislation. But my experience from living with Muslim friends for 50 years now in Sweden, Arabs, Pakistanis, Turks, and so on, my experience is that Muslims in Sweden are gradually integrating in a very good way. And I have great hope in the young generation. You know, those like your children, who are contemporaries of my children, those who were born here, who have a double cultural competence, you know, who know how to deal with Swedish manners, but who also know their roots in the Muslim culture. These people are bridge builders.
You was the advisor of Islamic affairs at the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yes.
What was your experience and what you advised to the Swedish Foreign Ministry about Islam?
Well, my first advice was do not interact with Muslim governments abroad only. Be sure always to involve the Muslims in Sweden, you know. So when we had visitors, for example, from the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, you know, the Secretary General, Dr. Iqbal, who was a close friend of President Erdogan, when they came to Stockholm for a visit, of course, they visited the king and the prime minister and so on, but they also came to the mosque in Stockholm and they had lunch with the local Muslim community here, you know. It's very important not to be too much on the top level and forget about the citizens of your own country.
Exactly. Yeah,
so this was one of my main things.
Yeah, and he was also the advisor to the Swedish government about Islamophobia.
Yes.
What is the current situation regarding Islamophobia in Sweden?
I think there are some bad signs, some bad developments. I think the greatest problem is that those people who speak loudly against Islam, who have almost a hatred against Islam or against Muslims, they have no Muslim friends. They have no interaction. You know,
exactly.
It's very difficult to hate somebody whom you meet. Right?
Yeah.
So, for example,
then you know each other.
Yes.
And then you have the mutual respect.
Yes, I think this is very, very important. You know, when you talk about social distance. This is very, very dangerous.
But you see the incident which are being held in Sweden or held in the past. Due to that, in the world there is some, I think, thinking that there is Islamophobia increasing in Sweden. What you will say?
I think it's very difficult to measure. You know, to know exactly how many percent or how many people agree with Muslims and so on. I think the more important thing is to see how are the Muslims themselves doing in Sweden. Are they doing well? How is unemployment? How is the level of education? How many go to the mosque on Fridays? How many feel that they can learn about their religion and still, you know, also be integrated in the Swedish society? This is the most important for the future. Yeah, exactly. You know, the debates in the media, they will come and go. And there will always be some fools, you know, who misuse our freedom of expression.
Yeah, exactly.
And they want to hurt Sweden, they want to damage Sweden. But look at the ordinary citizen, you and me and our children.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we live? Can we have a good life? Can you give your children a good education? I think you can. I think your son is becoming a medical doctor. Huh?
Yeah.
My children are working in schools and working in some supermarket and so on. Okay, so they stand on their own and they are friends. They don't bother is he a Muslim, is he a Christian, is he an atheist? They don't bother.
And where do you see the future of Muslims in Sweden?
I think the future is just before us now. You have a number of young, intellectual, smart Muslims, girls and boys, young men and young women, who will know how to build the bridges across all these prejudice and ignorance. You must also remember that many Muslims, they are ignorant about Christianity. They are ignorant about secular ideas also. So it's a two-way communication.
Exactly.
It's not only the Swedish people learning about Islam. Muslims must also learn more about.
Yeah, exactly. And we should also give time to our kids, how they are raised, and the parents should realize this responsibility. You know what's happening in Sweden, and most of the time the teenagers are involved in such incidents.
Yes. But you remember, for example, in Malmö, when there, maybe 2 years ago, there were some riots and young people, young Muslim men and women, they were running around and burning tires and so on, and in some kind of protest and throwing pebbles at the police. Then I spoke to my friends in Malmö who are the imams of the mosques there, and they said, we didn't see one of these young people in the mosque. They never came to the mosque.
Yeah, exactly.
They are not Muslim believers.
Even they don't read the Quran. People.
So the imams, they tried to talk to them, but they discovered these are not members of our community, our congregation.
Exactly. I think we also have the responsibility for the integration. What do you think?
I think so, and I think if you allow your children to interact with ethnical Swedish families and try not to remain, in close communities, but to interact and to be friends and not be afraid. Allama Iqbal, he is a great example for this. He went to England, he went to Germany, he went to France, he learned all the languages, he read all the books, he discussed, he had guftagu with all the great. He was not afraid. So you open the doors.
So, thank you very much for your time and very good discussion, and I hope the viewers liked this discussion with Jon Heningson, and please write your comments, and I will wait your opinion, and in future we'll meet again and we'll discuss more issues.
अगर ऐसी खुदा की मर्जी है,
अगर ऐसी खुदा की मर्जी है तो हम फिर मिलेंगे. तो अपना ख्याल रखिएगा और अपनी राय से ज़रूर आगाह कीजिए. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you very much, Jon Heningson.
खुदा हाफिज़.
Welcome, Jon Heningson. He's a researcher, he's a writer, he was the Director General in Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he was a diplomate, he was the head of Swedish Institute in Alexandria in Egypt. Thank you very much for your time.